is Don Horne, Associate Broker for Coldwell Banker Schultz Realty and founder of Team Success Listing. Hey, this week's question that we're going to be doing is, what is a realtor's responsibility? And I was fortunate enough to be working with Wes. Wes is a real estate broker and also founder of Finding New Neighbors Productions. And he's going to let us use his studio this week, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
No problem, Don.
Thank you. So, and being a real estate broker, actually any kind of a real estate agent, we have to know a code of ethics.
That's right.
Okay, so I guess this was a client's question. He had a problem with a previous real estate agent, and that's why we got the question there. But he basically wanted to know, what are the duties representing a buyer?
The representing a buyer is, number one, you have to work solely on their best interest. Everything you do, the code of ethics is there to protect the general consumer, the general public. As realtors, we have a little bit more of an inside knowledge of the working of the industry, and where the general consumer may not. So we have to look out after their best interest. Everything we do is for them.
Okay, all right. And I guess one of the things he was talking about is he felt he was misled as a buyer. The agent really talked up this house and everything, and then come to find out it wasn't that great of a house.
Yeah, well, when an agent's showing a buyer a house, they're representing buyer, not the house. So they've really got to just listen to the buyer more than try to push the house. They have to listen to the buyer. And if they have a concern, it's up to that agent to really look into that concern and see if that concern is a legitimate concern or not. And look into the house to find out if there's a problem where that buyer might have that concern.
Because we've all heard the stories about realtors, you know, they just want to get that deal and they got to get it done, and they'll just kind of say anything to get, you know what I'm saying.
And you know, I see that a lot. But really, a successful realtor will always put the needs of their clients first. And I've always said this, if I can meet the needs of all my clients, my needs will be met automatically, just by design.
There you go.
So at no point is any transaction supposed to become personal to the agent more than the buyer.
Okay, all right. Is it a lot different if you're representing a seller?
Well, when you're representing the seller, you're trying to promote the sale of their home specifically, and you know, that client that comes to you to ask to sell the house, you're doing the contractual work to get it listed. You're also doing the marketing, so there's a lot of different avenue there. It's a different animal, so to speak. So you're doing the marketing, so you have to be kind of a specialist in that area. But when an offer comes in, it's really important to look at that offer and make sure there's no hidden traps. A lot of agents will put something in a purchase agreement where can make that seller not notice it, not recognize this trap, and then down the road they find out, oh, I didn't know I've got to pay for a well inspection now, or I've got to pay for a certain amount of money in repairs, or there's seller concessions, or there's some chattel or personal property now involved in the.
And chattel is?
Chattel is personal property. The difference between chattel and real estate is if it's bolted down. Anything like kitchen cabinets are real estate.
Okay.
Kitchen table is chattel, it's personal property. Sometimes an offer will come in and there'll be a pool table. Well, it states it right in the contract that they're looking for the pool table to be included. But there may be some elements that are in there that a seller may not notice. Drapes, curtains, those are usually included in the sale. Well,
and as we both know, sellers very rarely read every word in a contract.
Yeah, and it's really important for talking about that code of ethics. If you're representing a seller, it's very important not to just email that offer to them, say, hey, looks good to me, sign it and send it back. Okay, you need to, as an agent, you need to go over every element of that purchase agreement. Some of that, they may say, well, the rest of this is pretty normal verbiage. Well, some of that normal verbiage that you're talking about.
Normal to you.
Yeah, normal to me may not be normal to that seller.
Right.
So in most purchase agreements nowadays, if there is a septic field and a well, no matter what's going on, that purchase agreement is trying to push the seller to pay for those inspections. So that is a negotiable item. You can scratch that off if you need to. And working with that code of ethics, you are there to represent that client, whether you're on the buyer side or the seller side.
Now, is it fair to hold back offers? Let's say you got an offer, but you know somebody's called you and they want to put an offer in. Would you hold an offer back, or is it fair to hold an offer back without
No.
telling the seller?
No, it's okay to tell the seller another agent may be having another offer coming in,
Okay.
but Code of Ethics dictate when an offer comes in, it's our duty, our job, to submit that offer, present that offer to that seller immediately.
Okay, all right. Now, what happens, and I know you're going to love this question, what if you're representing both the buyer and the seller?
Well, you know, on payday, all agents like that. Okay, at the time that of the closing, everybody likes to be a dual agent.
Sure.
But there's specific requirements to even allow you to be a dual agent. Before a listing agent can talk about their listing to a potential buyer, they have to have in writing with the seller authorization to be a dual agent. A lot of agents will take a listing and they don't even look at a dual agency form. They don't even bring it up. Well, if they're doing both sides, or if they're even answering questions to a buyer about a property without that dual agency form, they're actually in violation of the Code of Ethics.
So you can't, when you list the property, you can't say, hey, I'm a listing agent, and then when you get a buyer, you can't say, hey, I'm a buyer's agent.
That's right.
You have to
That's
be.
right. When I take a listing, I ask my client up front, do you object to me bringing buyers to your home?
Okay.
I've never had a client say, no, I don't want you to do that. I always have that dual agency form available at the time I do a listing. And like I say, I've never had somebody not want to do that because of all my marketing. You know, you and I, we both have individual websites for our listings. We have QR codes. We do all these different things for our property listings. And that's to bring buyers to our listings. And our ultimate goal is to sell that property. That's our mission.
So we need to tell the consumer needs to know what you're representing, who you're representing.
That's right. It's a disclosure.
Okay.
Just like when you list a house, the seller has to sign disclosures.
Right.
Lead-based paint disclosures, all these. And before an offer can be written, the buyer's agent has to receive those disclosures to present them to the buyer. That's
We were
another.
just talking about disclosures today, that guy that
Yeah.
just write the offer and I'll send you the disclosures.
Yeah, yeah, you can't do that. A matter of fact, I don't want to get off topic for you, but one of the things is when you're writing an offer on a house, if you write the offer subject to review of seller disclosures, that buyer can back out at any time.
Okay.
Because the disclosures are there so you know what you're writing an offer on. Say, for example, the buyer's seen the house, they have seen it, they've walked through it, they know what the house looks like. So they write an offer, say, for $200,000 based on what they've seen. Now the seller disclosures come in a few days later for their review, and they find out that house has a serious case of mold that's been covered up, or infestation of bats, or ants, or termites. Their offer wouldn't have been $200,000 at that point. It may have been much lower.
Or not at all.
That's right, or not at all. Very good. So that's why it's actually required that seller disclosures are supplied prior to writing the offer.
And one thing too, and he kind of hit on it, and I was thinking about that, you know, when we do bring buyers into our sellers' homes, we know the home better than any other agent's going to know.
Correct.
So it's kind of almost like the seller shouldn't have too many problems with us bringing in buyers.
Right.
I always thought it was a little bit, we've got the knowledge and you know what I'm trying to say.
Right. And one thing I want to add, though, that when you are working as a dual agent, you have duties to both parties. That's for counseling, professionalism, openness, disclosure, things like this. You can't hide anything. However, you can't disclose personal information either. If, when you took the listing, say it's a $200,000 listing and the seller tells you, well, we'll take 180, but we figure we'll leave a room for negotiating.
That's a good point.
You can't tell the buyer up
That's a
front,
good point.
well, they've already told me they'll take 180.
Right.
That is a huge problem.
All right. Because at that time, you were just a seller's agent.
That's right.
Okay.
So what you're doing is you're taking the listing for a specific price. Your job to the seller is to get that price or more, or as much as possible. And when you do find a buyer for it, you are working for both parties now. And in that purchase agreement, remember, there are some, I hate to use the word traps, but there are some verbiages in certain paragraphs, such as that well and septic field, you're not going to scratch that out because you're representing the seller too. You're not going to scratch it out right at the beginning, and the buyer's going to look at that and go, why are you doing that?
Right.
So you do have to be very professional in how you approach that. It's critical that you have the right answers, the right information for both parties, so you don't end up putting yourself into a corner and say you have a deal fall apart because of an issue in the purchase agreement, and you're the one that wrote it, and you're representing both parties. So you have to be careful. So that's one of the reasons why those code of ethics are very important.
So it's good that we have the code of ethics.
Absolutely, it's critical.
And it covers all consumers, not just buyers, not
That's
just
right.
sellers.
That's right.
Also, too, what about a guy that's trying to rent? Let's say he's got a 4-unit apartment building, he wants to rent and stuff, and we're representing him. We still have to have the code of ethics in that
That's right.
representation.
Oh, absolutely. The one difference is in renting is you need the lead-based paint disclosure, but the seller disclosure isn't required because you're not selling the property.
Correct.
But even in a rental, you still have to have the lead-based paint disclosure.
But the point I was trying to make, we still need to have the code of ethics for everybody. Doesn't
That's
mean
right.
what we're selling or renting or leasing or whatever.
And a professional realtor, when they're working with a client, it should be evident that that agent does work with a solid code of ethics.
Right. Right.
There shouldn't be any question.
We should always act professional.
That's right.
So we
That's
all should
right.
be there. And I know this is kind of like quick questions or quick answers on this question here, but I thought it was very important at the time because, like I said, this one client had a real problem and we thought we'd just bring it up and talk about it and everything. But if you've got more questions about buying or selling, you can call myself, you can call Wes. I'm going to have our contact information at the bottom of this video. Like I said, if it's any questions about real estate, mortgages, or anything, or maybe some questions that you think other people would be interested in, let us know.
I think these were great questions, Don. I'm
Thank
glad you brought
Thank
these
you.
up, and we got a chance to talk about it.
All right, and I appreciate you letting us use your studios today.
No problem.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a great day.